starts at 6 a.m, before any animal meat has touched the machines. The founder believes that the new alternatives for sausages and other foods we love could help reduce overconsumption of meat and fish. Algae is the perfect ingredient, and not only for sausages.
Then we have bioshots, which also give the body a lot of vitamins. And pure algae, like the red dulse algae. It can be eaten straight, as a salt substitute, or it can be deep fried. Then it tastes like bacon. A bacon substitute for vegans.
Algae sausages are more expensive than the meat variety, but these don't have flavour enhancers or food colouring, and they're vegan. Ultimately, it's up to the consumer.
The fashion industry has come under intense pressure to mend its wasteful ways. With the new generation of consumers demanding change, labels, both big and small, are looking for ways to reuse and recycle. In Delhi, one designer's quest for sustainability could help preserve a centuries-old craft.
This Delhi neighborhood tells the story of a dying industry. Sundar Nagri was once a thriving hub of handloom weavers, but mass production has pushed their craft to the brink of extinction. Today, they can barely eke out a living. Their plight was one of the motivating factors behind the creation of Paywand the Studio. Its name is drawn from the Hindi phrase Paywand Lagana, meaning to patch up or repair. It aims to employ traditional weavers and make the textile industry more sustainable. Mohammad Naushad is working on a soft furnishing fabric. It's 5 meters long and made entirely of silk waste. Naushad belongs to a family of traditional weavers. He moved to Delhi with his wife and child in 2019 to be a part of this studio.
Back in my hometown, I had to worry about every little thing. Suppliers, how to utilize fabric, delivery, etc. My focus here is on weaving and creating new designs. That's all.
Paywand the Studio was founded by fashion designer and social entrepreneur Ashita Singhal. Her business upcycles fabric waste into flat yarn to be sold back to design houses for making new garments.
Whenever we collaborate with a design house or a fashion brand, they send us the waste. It isn't cleaned and assorted as per different colors and fiber types. It isn't cut into strips and then woven into a new fabric. The repurposed fabric is then sold back to those designers at a higher value so that they can create a sustainable range for their clientele. So the process is very circular, so our source of raw material is also our final client.
Paywand's customers are encouraged to return old products instead of discarding them, so they can be repurposed. In the last 2 years, the studio says it has upcycled 1,500 kilos of scrap, produced over 3,000 meters of upcycled fabric, and saved more than 3 million liters of water. Its annual turnover is around rupees 50 lakhs or 56,000 euros.
For me, design is about solving problems. And the biggest problem today is of climate change. And I thought, and fashion contributes a lot towards water pollution, air pollution, and consumptions and land pollution.
At Paywand, water is only used for cleaning purposes. And since the company only uses waste materials, it can avoid dyes and chemicals entirely. The bigger challenge is converting waste into well-designed products.
I enjoy creating fabric samples the most. It's challenging, which is what I like about it. It's not easy to design with scraps, but above all, this work is useful because it helps protect the environment.
Today, Paywand has 6 handlooms and 5 weavers. Creating this sustainable business model, with customers playing an active role, has given weavers hope. It also provides a blueprint for other craftspeople working in India's textile industry.
The concept of reuse and recycle has been culturally inherited by people all over India. My grandmother, for example, has always found a way to turn old clothes into good-looking pillow covers or repurpose day-old food into a delicious new dish. The baton is now in our hands. I'll leave you with that thought and see you again next week. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
The amount of plastic is increasing every year.
For many in Ghana, working on landfills is the only work there is.
Holiday destinations are drowning in plastic waste.
We rewind and take a look at the causes.
Every year, Europe exports over 1 million tons of plastic waste. Is there another way? After all, the environment isn't recyclable. Make up your own mind. DW, made for minds. A film about a taboo.
Menstruation has always been a shameful, dirty secret.
About women and girls across the world.
Most of the girls end up being at home, they miss their schools.
Against silence and for equal opportunity. Taboo menstruation.
It's as if Pandora's box is opening.
Pandora's Box starts October 11th on DW.
Love and respect.
This is DW News live from Berlin. Financial secrets of the rich and powerful exposed in a massive data leak. Millions of documents in the so-called Pandora Papers point the finger at world leaders and the tax havens they use to hide their wealth. Also coming up on the show, 2 U.S. scientists are awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine for their discovery of receptors for temperature and touch. The committee says their work unlocks a secret of nature that's crucial to our survival. Plus, analysts fear a threat to China's economy as troubled real estate developer Evergrande looks for a lifeline. We will get the latest from our business desk. And the number of women working as journalists in Afghanistan drops dramatically under Taliban rule. Our correspondent meets one woman who's refusing to give up her career. Hello, I'm Christine Mundo. It's good to have your company. A massive data leak has revealed the secret financial dealings of some of the world's richest and most powerful people. The so-called Pandora Papers show how politicians, business tycoons and celebrities hide their wealth using offshore tax havens. Now, the investigation was carried out by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists with global media partners, including DW.
To Siegfried Bär and his wife, the financial advisor's proposals seemed sound and the investment model wasn't too risky. But when they wanted to cash out their earnings, the money was gone. The same thing happened to thousands of others in a multi-million-dollar fraud involving dubious offshore shell companies.
The offshore companies are key to making tracing more difficult for everyone involved, especially for investigators.
A massive trove of financial documents, dubbed the Pandora Papers, provides some clues. The dataset consists of around 12 million confidential documents. It allegedly reveals the owners of 27,000 shell companies, including more than 330 politicians, such as the heads of state of Ukraine, Kenya, and Ecuador. The leaked records show that Czech Prime Minister Andrej Babiš also put millions into shell companies to buy a chateau in France. Babiš is suspected of concealing the origin of the money and of tax evasion. He responded to the allegations during an election debate.
I'm being accused of money laundering. Let me clarify. The money came from a Czech bank. It was taxed, it was my money, and it came back to the Czech Republic.
For Babiš, the timing couldn't be worse. He's up for re-election this week.
And I'm now joined by the journalist Friedrich Obermeier. He is of the Süddeutsche Zeitung in Munich. Now, as a member of the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, he is part of the team behind this investigation. So it's really good to have you on the program. Friedrich, could you just give us a summary, essentially, here of what you uncovered?
Well, the Pandora Papers are a leak of more than 11 million documents coming from 14 offshore service providers. And they show that after the leaks like the Panama Papers that were published 5 years ago, not that much change. We see more than 330 politicians and public officials hiding or trying to hide their money in tax havens. And I think that shows the problem that many politicians who could basically change the system, who could pass stricter laws, are themselves profiting from tax havens and intransparent company structures.
Friedrich, have any police authorities perhaps been in touch with your investigative team over the release of this report?
No, no police authorities or other authorities have approached Süddeutsche Zeitung so far. In the past, many authorities have approached us, but at our editorial decision, we do not hand over data to the state or to state authorities.
You and I are both speaking from Germany, and I'm just wondering to what extent are politicians and perhaps powerful people here implicated in this report, if at all?
Well, we do see many Germans in the data. Not all of them are of public interest. That's why due to the German law, we could not mention many of them. But we do not see leaders or heads of states or heads of government or ministers in the data. That is something that we do see in many other countries. But I think that does not mean that German politicians are better than other politicians. It could simply mean that they are not in those documents that we have that have been leaked to the ICIJ.
You know, there are people watching this, listening to you and I, and thinking, you know, we've heard this before, right? You referred to the Panama Papers of 5 years ago. The wealthy do this. They hide their wealth, tax evasion, tax avoidance. Some of it is illegal, some of it isn't. Why should people care about this, Frederick? Why is it so important for us to know?
Well, I must admit, yes, it's another leak. It sounds sometimes boring, just another tax haven leak, but it's super important because we are living in a time where governments need a lot of money. We are living in a pandemic. Our government needs money to basically fight this pandemic. When we, for example, do see broken streets, when we have to pay a lot for universities, for healthcare, then this is because the riches and the super riches are evading or minimizing and avoiding their taxes, their fair share to our society. So this is why those topics, the Pandora Papers, as many other leaks, do matter for all of us. They are important because they are affecting us every day, every minute in our lives.
All right, that is the journalist Frederick Obermeier. He is one of the journalists behind the Pandora Project. Thank you for your time and reporting, Frederick.
Thanks for having me.
Now, scientists David Julius and Ardem Patapoutian have jointly won the Nobel Prize for Medicine for their discoveries of receptor for temperature and touch. The duo's research has broken ground in the emerging field of mechanobiology, which looks at how pressure receptors work inside the body. The announcement kicks off the yearly awards ceremony, which rewards outstanding work that has contributed to the advancement of humanity. And here's the announcement from the committee in Stockholm a short time ago.
The work by David Julius and Ardem Patapoutian has unlocked one of the secrets of nature by explaining the molecular basis for sensing temperature and mechanical force. This represents a foundation for our perception of temperature, heat pain, touch, and the location and movement of our body called proprioception.
And for more on this, I'm joined by DW senior science correspondent Derek Williams. Derek, it's good to have you at the table as always. So did this come as a surprise? What do you think of this win?
Well, it's always a surprise, actually. You know, when the Nobel Prize is awarded, it's very, very, very difficult to predict. But I think you could say that it's probably more of a surprise than usual, actually, this year, because a lot of people had predicted that the prize for medicine was going to go to some of the people who were involved in the development of COVID-19 messenger RNA vaccines, right, because that has had a very, very clear impact on the field of medicine for all of humanity. But instead, the committee decided to go in a more traditional direction and reward this fundamental basic research, which is also fundamental and basic research to our understanding, right, and to the field of medicine.
Okay, and while you're there, would you please break down the science that earned this prize? Okay,
well, it basically works out to we have to constantly interact with our environment, and we do that through our sensory systems, including, for example, our sense of touch. And that interaction has to somehow be transferred or changed into the currency that the body uses, which is electrical current, basically. So this outer influence has to somehow pass through our skin and be turned into an electrical signal that can be understood by our brain. Now, this happens through cellular receptors, and both of these scientists did fundamental breakthroughs